And I'm thinking beyond the first year when everybody wants to get there to see the new arena, it's going to be great. It's going to be filled up. But after that, I don't see a bright future on the horizon for a long, long time. You think about it, they haven't really started a rebuild in that they haven't traded away players that other teams covet to get more prospects or whatever. They haven't bottomed out yet and had the truly awful seasons where you're one of the worst three teams in the league.
Right.
They haven't done that yet. Now, that's coming. I think it's coming. But this could be a long, long time.
Oh, yeah.
And you're banking, okay, well, how do you get better? You get better through the draft. And they finally have had, the last couple of years, they've got some first-round picks that have been higher up in the draft. But these guys are still years away from really competing.
Well, that's the difference between what the Red Wings decide to do and what the Tigers have decided to do, which is interesting because they're both Ilitch organization teams. The Red Wings have tried to continue to continue to compete for the playoffs and build their roster for the future. The Tigers have given up on the playoffs. They've just gone full-scale rebuild. Who gets back to a healthier situation sooner?
Tigers.
Probably the Tigers.
Because I feel more confident in their youth than I do in the Red Wings' youth. The Tigers have players I think that other teams definitely covet. The Red Wings don't really have that. Like if the Red Wings were to offer up their, going into, let's say, compare the Tigers this past April and the Red Wings right now. Who do the Red Wings have that other teams would say, I really want that player off your team?
Well, I think they would say they really want Dylan Larkin.
Okay.
I think they really would say they want Anthony Mantha.
But those two guys aren't going to net you anything in comparison to what the Tigers, when the Tigers had Verlander.
No.
And I
no,
mean,
they
the
don't
beginning
have a
of the
whole
season,
bunch of parts to sell off. No, you're right.
And the Tigers still have parts to sell off. They got Michael Fulmer to sell off, too.
It would be like, you know what this would be? The apples-to-apples comparison would be like 5 years ago, the Red Wings sell Pavel, Zetterberg.
Yeah.
Move Nick Lidstrom,
right
at the end of his career,
yep.
Go win a Stanley Cup somewhere else. That's what it would have been like. And had they done that 5 years ago, guess where they'd be today? If they did it right.
Probably.
If they drafted well, they'd have a much better chance of going into the new arena with a competitive team. But now that's
teams
also,
don't. You know what? I'd love to know how many. I don't. My gut tells me that not many teams do that. And not many teams commit to, all right, we're not going to be good anytime soon. Let's get rid of the fan favorite players that have been here their entire career. Teams don't do that.
But in the NHL, teams do sneak into the playoffs and win Stanley Cups. And so that's why it's harder to do it in the NHL than it is harder to do in Major League Baseball. By the way, we're streaming live on Facebook right now, so if you want to get your comments in, go to the 97.1 The Ticket Facebook page, 248-539-9797. Gator, we got some intel, some data on Andreas Athanasiou and how legitimate it is that Detroit could lose a young, budding, I don't want to say star, but helpful player. Star might be an overstatement, but a guy who's part of the rebuild. Could they lose him to the KHL? It's starting to seem more realistic. We'll get to that coming up in a few minutes. Here's some feedback just sent in regarding Calvin Johnson. Calvin will be the understudy for Cher's latest tour before he visits the Lions. That's from Russ. The ultimate slap in the face would be if Calvin visits the Thumb of Michigan. That's from Dustin and Allen Park. From an unnamed texter. It looks like Calvin is passively...
Calvin and Caseville. That sounds better than the Cheeseburger Festival.
It looks like Calvin is passively trolling the Lions, and Bobby Quinn is smartly one-upping him with the website tribute and going out of his way to publicly invite him back. From Arthur and Adrian, you heard it here first. Mega troll.
Oh, boy.
From Bob at work, is there a $5 off coupon for Depends undergarments for adults on the Calvin Johnson tribute page? Wow. It seems like Calvin showing up all kinds of places. He's retweeting other NFL franchises' Twitter pages. Nothing from the Lions. Nothing.
I'm telling you, he is not going to come back anytime soon. Unless there's some other kind of agreement between the two parties. I just don't see it happening. There's real animosity obviously on his part. The Lions are absolutely trying what they can
Honest
to
question.
preserve some sort of relationship and have Calvin come back to the fold like Barry Sanders did after Barry retired, like other former Lions have done. They've done a nice job of reaching out to some of the Hall of Famers and bringing them back to the organization, or some of the really good players and bringing them back to the organization to create the kind of family. And right now, still too soon for Calvin.
Here's the honest question, though. Do you think Calvin is just living his life and doing his thing with not even the Lions in his nary a thought? Or do you think Calvin is trolling them? Do you think Calvin has a passive-aggressive thing going on?
I think it's a little bit of passive-aggressive.
I think there's passive-aggressive. I think he is definitely going, I'm going to go to this team, I'm going to go to that team, I'm going to be, retweeting a Falcons page, going to other NFL teams, visiting their training camps. 248-539-9797. From Jim at work, I'm rooting for all the former Tigers that were traded this season, Verlander and JD especially, and I'm 100% all in with hopes to see their success. The rest I don't follow, but JV and JD were great guys that loved Detroit. Both were beloved players here. From Pete in St. Clair Shores, it's not the Tigers fan hell. It's not Tigers fan hell. What are you talking about? Our season was over, and now we have 6 other teams we can adopt and hope they do well. I hope JV goes 6-0 for Houston down the line. Also happy for Upton, the Cubs, but blank Scherzer because he didn't want to be a number 2 behind JV. That's from Pete in St. Clair Shores. Gator, I got to tell you, I'll root for JV, but that's, to me, it's like nothing, not even remotely interesting compared to when your team's involved. Like, this is kind of like, oh yeah, JV's pitching in the wild card game, or JV's pitching in a playoff game tonight. I'll root for him. Let's see how he does. All right, that's cool. And then I'm on to my next. It doesn't make me feel any better when I get out of bed the next morning. So I guess I think of this as Tiger fan hell. The team is completely dismantled, and what could have been is helping other teams advance to the postseason and through the postseason.
Stan writes this on the Facebook live feed on 97.1 The Ticket. Tigers are ridding themselves of any major contracts to make themselves more saleable. The kids don't have the same passion for the team that Mike Ilitch did. It was his baby. Marion didn't either, and she can't because of her ties to the casino. With District Detroit being the focus of attention, look at the Tigers to remain in Ilitch Holdings for the time being with Avila and Ausmus until they sell the team.
Well, they very well could be positioning it to sell. I think the managerial question is an interesting one. I'll just state this regarding the manager, and we talked about this yesterday. If they replace the manager, when the new guy starts losing at an epic pace, please don't ask for him to be fired. Please don't do that.
Right.
The new guy has to get a team up and running, and that probably means at minimum 2 years of losing. At minimum.
Brian writes this on Facebook Live. It's interesting for Andreas Athanasiou to consider the KHL. He could play in the Olympics. I wonder if that could set a precedent for players to play in Russia for a year or elsewhere just to retain eligibility for the Olympics. The NHL players have made it known they want to play in the Olympics.
Yep.
And the NHL has made it known they don't want them to play in the Olympics.
All right, Gator, we have some numbers reported by a Red Wings reporter on what the Red Wings offered him and what the KHL is offering him. Because they could lose him. They very well could lose him. And more feedback coming in for what? When will you buy in to Michigan being better than you thought they'd be? And State fans, when will you buy in? When would be the earliest you could possibly buy into them having a winning season?